It's time for your Southern California Foreclosure Report. Now that things are changing in the foreclosure market in Southern California, we are going to share those numbers with you. We have the notices of default, notices of trustee sale, and now including REOs or real estate owned. Plus, stick around to the end where we're going to share why we expect one county in Southern California to see an increase in the number of foreclosures. Hey there. Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates. We've been helping buyers and sellers and tenants and landlords make the best decisions during these crazy days in California and beyond. We were including these with our usual market reports, but now that things are changing, it's time to give them their own reports. We have a lot of data to share. So if you're ready to dive into the Southern California foreclosure market, hit that like button. And let's get started. Let's dive into our Southern California Foreclosure Report. We're going to start with the month-over-month data. So it's going to show us what has been going on during COVID. And then we're going to switch to the year-over-year data, which is going to put it into perspective, show us if we should be worried about foreclosures or not yet. So let's dive in. The notice of default is the first step in the process. So 120 days minimum after a payment is missed, the notice of default will be filed. 90 days later is the notice of trustee sale, and 21 days later will be the sale itself. Now, this is the absolute quickest the timeline can be. Usually it is stretched out. In some cases, it can take a year or longer before a property is actually foreclosed on. You can see in the month-over-month data, we have January 2021 to January 2022, and things are up. You can see that, for example, in Los Angeles, over 3 times as many notices of default were filed in January as compared to January of 2021. So things are up. And as you know, our email subscribers, they get this data, they can play with this numbers and they can see things in closer. So this is a dramatic increase in the notices of default that have been filed. And you can see where things changed. In July, the foreclosure moratorium was over. And you can see that big uptick from 197 to 322. And it stayed pretty regular until we got into December. Now, typically what happens seasonally, there are fewer foreclosure filings around the holidays. It's just a normal, typical trend. Then when January comes, you can see the numbers go back up. So we see that in this chart, and we can see that foreclosures are being filed now that the foreclosure moratorium is over. Moving on to the notice of trustee sale. So again, the second step, this is actually where they're going to be told that the property will be sold at trustee sale. You can see the dramatic increase after the July foreclosure moratorium ended. And what this was low-hanging fruit. So this would have been notices of default filed before COVID, and this would also be properties that were vacant. The trustees were able to deliver many more notices of trustee sale, and it was consistent until we got closer to the holidays, and then things slowed down again. And you can see that this same trend of the dramatic increase into August was all throughout Southern California. So you can see here that going into the new year, into January, we are back up in the notice of trustee sale. So that means that theoretically 21 days from January going into February, that there could start to be these properties going to foreclosure sale. But let's put this into context. We have to look at year-over-year numbers to see really where this falls. We know that foreclosures have been at a historical low level, but let's put this into perspective. So we're going to put this into perspective by comparing year-over-year numbers. Starting with the notice of default, we're going back, January's all the way back to 2015 in this chart, so that you can see how things look. And of course, Los Angeles, having the most properties, tends to have the most properties in foreclosure at any given time. You can see what happened 2020. Pre-pandemic, remember this is January, this is before COVID hit. We actually had a big spike in notices of default in Los Angeles and several other places throughout Southern California. Then COVID hit and things slowed down dramatically. You can see January of 2021, while we were under foreclosure moratorium, there were almost none. This would have only been private lenders who were able to move forward. And then here we are in 2022. What looked like a dramatic increase in the notice of default is actually just a normal year. It's a normal start. We see 2015 through 2018, the numbers look the same. We have needed to get back to normal foreclosure levels, and that's what we're doing so far in 2022. More perspective. This helps you see how things are when you compare it to much busier years for notices of default in 2011. You can see the notices of default that have been filed are about a third of where they were back in January of 2011 during the global financial crisis. So this puts it in a perspective where you can see that the foreclosure levels that we're at right now, the first step, much, much lower than the global financial crisis. Moving into the second step of the foreclosure process, the notice of trustee sale. So we've gone 120 days, then 90 days, and here we are at the notice of trustee sale. And you can see for Southern California that we're not even at normal levels. We're still low. We see the drop that we had in 2021 due to the foreclosure moratoria. Then we get into 2022 and numbers are up, but we're lower than 2015 through 2017. And let's get LA, big old LA, out of the way. And you can see that we're down for any given county in Southern California. Now, part of the reason is, remember, those 120, 90, 21 days, those are minimums. The reason we don't have as many people at the notice of trustee sale phase is we got rid of our low-hanging fruit. Remember, that happened in August and September. Now that we're in January, we see the uptick, but we're still not through some of the notices of default to the point where it's a notice of trustee sale. I hope that makes sense. We're going to see the number go up in the coming months as more properties move through the foreclosure process. And putting this in perspective, how does this compare to 2011? Very, very tiny numbers, as you can see, that this is almost less than a tenth in Los Angeles for the number of properties that had the notice of trustee sale filed for them. So these are tiny, tiny numbers compared to historical highs that we had during the global financial crisis. Must keep this in perspective. And now I've added in REOs, or real estate owned. So these are properties, they go to trustee sale and they end up going back to the bank, as they say, back to the Benny. So this is a new category I'm adding in. Now that we're able to dive into the foreclosure, we're going to be doing our foreclosure reports. We'll be able to share these numbers as well. And this really puts it into perspective and shows, in general, we've been seeing bank-owned homes foreclosures have been dropping, and you can see that trend has moved from 2015 down to 2021, where there were practically no bank-owned properties. And now you can see the numbers are starting to go up in 2022, but don't forget, this is the end of the process. The foreclosure moratorium ended in July. We're still not getting any brand new notice of default properties yet coming through foreclosure all the way to the end. So this number will increase, but let's put this in perspective. Like I keep saying over and over, let's go ahead and go back to 2012 as far as we can go back and take a look at Los Angeles, for example. In January, look at that number of properties. Over 1,000 properties went back to the Benny in 2012. So that shows you just how dramatic things were. That's why we had so much inventory back then. When you have over 1,000 properties going back to the bank and then ultimately coming to the open market, these are crazy, crazy numbers of foreclosures. So in summary, and looking at this data, do you think there's any sort of foreclosure wave building? Let me know in the comments below. A few more important points to share with you. As mentioned in this video, the end of the foreclosure moratorium has led to an increase in the notices of default and notices of trustee sale. Another thing that's going to potentially lead to more foreclosures is the end of the mortgage forbearance program. Now, we did have people start to be kicked out of the program in September and October of 2021. We haven't yet seen any change in the data that shows that a lot of those folks are going into the foreclosure process. It is a little bit early for that because, as mentioned, historically, the foreclosure process slows around the holidays. Now that the holidays are over, we may start to see an uptick. We're going to be tracking that very carefully here, so I recommend you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss it. Another thing we'll be carefully tracking is the number of foreclosures in Los Angeles. We do expect an uptick higher than we're going to find in other spots in Southern California, and that is due to the eviction moratorium. This was just recently extended, and we did a video on the LA County eviction moratorium. So through 2022 into 2023, it's going to be very difficult for landlords to remove tenants who are not paying rent. And what we're hearing from landlords who are reaching out to us in Los Angeles, some of those folks are losing their rental properties. The rental assistance isn't getting to them quickly enough, or it just plain isn't going to them because their tenants don't qualify. And since the landlord hasn't been receiving rent, they can't afford to make their payments anymore. We are going to start to see an uptick due to the eviction moratorium in Los Angeles in the number of foreclosures in Los Angeles. So we'll be tracking and reporting on that as well. Let us know in the comments below where you think the Southern California foreclosure market is headed. Join over 2,000 others in subscribing to our email newsletter, where we'll share updates like this, plus all the charts you saw in this video. And don't miss this playlist. It's a must-see for updates on Southern California real estate. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, and we want to hear from you.